In 1787, many Americans were concerned about the government that we had. The Articles of Confederation were just not meeting the challenges of the new United States, and George Mason was one of those who was most interested in improving the government. When the Constitutional Convention was called, Mason was asked by his fellow Virginians to attend and represent their interests. At the convention, Mason shared many ideas. He had many thoughts about government, about what could make the United States work and what would be good. However, as it went on, Mason began to grow more and more disillusioned with it. He felt that many of the things that were being adopted and added to it were actually very detrimental to the government. In the end, Mason, despite staying for the entire convention, refused to sign the Constitution. After the convention, he actually wrote down a list of his objections, the reasons why he thought the new government should not use this Constitution. These objections would be spread throughout the colonies and help make Mason a leader of the Anti-Federalists at the ratifying convention in Virginia. Ultimately, Mason's objections were not enough to dissuade people from adopting the new Constitution. However, some of its ideas did play a part in the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. One of the most important objections that Mason had to the Constitution was that it did not have a Bill of Rights. There is no Declaration of Rights, and the laws of the general government being paramount to the laws and constitution of the several states, the Declaration of Rights in the separate states are no security, nor are the people secure even in the enjoyment of the benefit of the common law. Mason and other Virginians thought that this was very important. In fact, when they created their own Constitution in 1776, one of their first tasks before even creating the Constitution was to create a Bill of Rights. And Mason was its primary author, the Virginia Declaration of Rights. Because the new Constitution of the United States did not have an equal Bill of Rights, Mason was extremely concerned that the government would be able to trample the rights of its citizens. Mason was so concerned about the lack of a Bill of Rights that two of his objections were dedicated to this idea. There is no declaration of any kind for preserving the liberty of the press or the trial by jury in civil causes, nor against the danger of standing armies in time of peace. Ultimately, Mason's objections on this particular score were influential enough that the first 10 amendments of the Constitution were adopted, collectively forming the new Bill of Rights.
I'm Katie Colo, a Visitor Services Representative here at Gunston Hall, and I wanted today to focus on one of the most interesting objections that George Mason had to the Constitution, Article 7. Hints also spurring that unnecessary officer, the Vice President, who, for want of other employment, is made President of the Senate, thereby dangerously blending the executive and legislative powers, besides always giving to some one of the states an unnecessary and unjust preeminence over the others. I think his concern for the separation of powers is something that we still share today. In particular, I think often about the segment in which he characterizes the Vice President's role as a dangerous blend between the executive branch and the legislative branch, since the Vice President does serve as the President of the Senate. To George Mason, this blend of power was a grave mistake because he was concerned that it would sway too strongly the opinion of this deliberative body. I think about this a lot today, given the present political scenario, when we consider that the Vice President often casts tie-breaking votes. And I wonder what Mason would have thought to see that vision become a reality.
Some of Mason's ideas were a little more esoteric. By requiring only a majority to make all commercial and navigation laws, the 5 southern states, whose produce and circumstances are totally different from that of the 8 northern and eastern states, may be ruined, for such rigid and premature regulations may be made as will enable the merchants of the northern and eastern states not only to demand an exorbitant freight, but to monopolize the purchase of the commodities at their own price for many years to the great injury of the landed interest and impoverishment of the people. And the danger is the greater as the gain on one side will be in proportion to the loss on the other. Whereas requiring 2/3 of the members present in both houses would have produced mutual moderation, promoted the general interest, and removed an insuperable objection to the adoption of this government. Mason was concerned about navigation acts. He was concerned about trade and where the trade would go in the new United States. He was afraid that the more northern and populous states, such as New York or Massachusetts, would be able to pass laws that required international trade going through ports in the northern cities, say New York City or Philadelphia or Boston. And this would happen at the expense of the less populous southern states, and their ports like Alexandria or Charleston in South Carolina. Ultimately, Mason's arguments on navigation acts were not adopted by other members of the ratifying convention and never became a part of the Constitution through any of the subsequent amendments.
I picked Article number 8, which is concerned with the subject of pardons that the President of the United States of America can actually give out. Number 8, the President of the United States has the unrestrained power of granting pardons for treason, which may be sometimes exercised to screen from punishment those whom he had secretly instigated to commit the crime, and thereby prevent discovery of his own guilt. The pardon objection matters to me because it brings attention to the topic of unchecked power in the three branches of government. Mason was concerned that the president would have too much power, or one person would have too much power among the three branches and make the branches of government unequal. This speaks to Mason's concern for power among those in government and shows that his priority was really the new citizens of the United States of America. So as we know, presidents have issued pardons throughout their presidency since the inception of the Constitution.
Ultimately, these are just a few of Mason's objections to the Constitution. You can read the entire document in the link in the description, or you can visit us here at Gunston Hall to learn more.